Well, hello and welcome everyone to Friday night at the Art Center to celebrate the exhibition, The Art of Disability Culture. This is our first hybrid event, and we look forward to sharing some pre-recorded content with you and some live content as we start a live stream in an hour. My name is Karen Kwan. I'm the Development Director with the Palo Alto Art Center Foundation. We're going to start with a quick introduction from our director, Karen Kinsel.
Welcome to the Palo Alto Art Center and our current exhibition, The Art of Disability Culture. I'm Karen Kinsel, the director of the Palo Alto Art Center. Thank you for being with us virtually this evening. We have so many people to thank who made this exhibition possible. First, I would like to thank our generous supporters, California Humanities, Pamela and David Hornick, and Magical Bridge. I also would like to thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services who helped make this hybrid event possible. We are a small but mighty team at the Palo Alto Art Center, and almost everyone on staff helped to contribute to make this exhibition and the associated events possible. I would like to thank the entire Palo Alto Art Center team. In particular, I would like to thank our exhibitions team. Joseph Sachs, our lead preparator, Anna Soland, our exhibitions registrar, our installation team of Leena, Danny, Laura, and Ivan. Thank you all. I also would like to thank Emer Picardo, who helped to create our website for this exhibition, and our interns, Janessa Berrigan and Sarah Lizarde. Thank you. I also want to thank the artists who contributed to this exhibition, more than 20 of them sharing their vision with all of us. Thank you so much for being part of the Art of Disability Culture. I would like to thank the Palo Alto Art Center Foundation members and donors for supporting everything that we do at the Art Center. And last but not least, I would like to thank our guest curator, Fran Osborne. It has been a pleasure and a delight working with her throughout this process, and I'm so excited to be able to have you hear from her next. Thank you, Fran, for all your work on this exhibition.
And now we'll have a chance to experience a walkthrough of the exhibition with guest curator Fran Osborne.
So welcome to the Art of Disability Culture, which has 20 artists with disabilities here at the Palo Alto Art Center. And I firstly want to say a big thank you to all the staff here who have worked very hard to make the show accessible, both here in the gallery and online for the people who are viewing. As the installation process was coming to an end, I began to realize just how timely this show might be. We're all going through so many unfamiliar situations and challenges and feeling very jangled. And some pieces in the show were created as a response to some of the events that are going on. So I'm hoping that you will find this a space of reflection and contemplation, but also that you will see the beauty and the joy that there is in the disability community too. So in the introductory space to the show, we have the title of the show, The Art of Disability Culture, which is in black sans serif lettering. And then below that, we have 3 portraits with yellow backgrounds by Bill Bruckner of his friends. But I'm going to talk about his self-portrait, which I'm going to stand next to. So I talked to Bill about his portraiture work before choosing which pieces to have in the show. And he told me that he had to make lots of self-portraits before he could become comfortable with himself, and that then he would feel that he could create a comfortable environment for people to come and sit in his studio, because creating a self-portrait is a very intimate process, and you have to stare a lot at each other and do a lot of close looking. And I think that's another theme of the show, is that we want people to really take time. There are lots of images of people with disabilities in the show, and we did that on purpose because we want to sort of saturate the environment with images of disabled people so that it's not seen as strange or unusual. And Bill's portrait is quite a bold but welcoming painting. He is bare-chested, and you can see that he has a short right arm. He's smiling. He is an older white guy. He's wearing glasses, and he's pretty skinny. He's wearing dark blue jeans, and he has bare feet too. And the dark bluish sort of background really throws his body into prominence. So as you come into the gallery, it's one of the first things that you see. And some of the portraits that Bill has done are prominent activists in the disability community. So this portrait on my right is of Leroy Moore, who is a really well-known activist and kind of superstar of the disability world. He began this project called Crip Hop, and he's just about to start a PhD at UCLA. And actually this amazing image of him has been used in lots of publications too. And so I'll try and describe it. It has a yellow background, and the yellow of Leroy's sweater sort of blends into the background. There are green stripes. He's wearing blue jeans. He's an African-American man with a moustache and a beard, and he's staring straight at us too. So I think you'll find that a lot of the portraits, people are staring directly at you and inviting you to hold their gaze and to really engage with them. And on this wall opposite is work by the younger generation. So Bill sort of represents the generation before the ADA came in 1990, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. And Michaela Otari's work, she represents the younger generation. So we have two of her amazing digital portraits in the show. And on the left here is a self-portrait. So again, another self-portrait. And she's wearing a crop top that says, "The future is accessible." And I think as a younger generation, she is claiming her space in the gallery as a right, and she doesn't have to fight for it in the same way that the older generation had to. But the portrait I really wanted to talk about is the memorial portrait of Stacey Milburn, who sadly passed away last year. And Stacey was this amazing dynamo in the disability justice and disability rights community. She was a great youth organizer and is really well known around the world actually as an amazing creator of disability joy, but also disability activism and community. And the background is all beautiful, colorful flowers. Stacey's wearing a purple and pink striped blouse. She's in her power chair. She has a trach, and she's wearing blue jeans and a great big smile. And she has dark red glasses too. One of the main things that the Bay Area is known for are the art projects run for adults with disabilities. So adult artists who have disabilities can continue a studio practice at places like Creativity Explored, Creative Growth, and NIAD. And their model has been followed in lots of places around the country. And on the left, we have some beautiful ceramic masks by Cedric Johnson. And on the right, a ceramic plate of food, which is amazing and highly colorful and glazed. And they're both artists from Creative Growth in Oakland. Another artist from one of the programs is Camille Holroy, who is well known for creating colorful Ferris wheels and cakes and really colorful drawings. And here we wanted to include the work that she's done that references the medications that she takes to keep her in a balanced frame of mind. But some of them refer to the purpose of the medication. So this one here is for focusing on her art. So they're really beautiful and really colorful. And then on the opposite wall is work by Jeremy Burleson, who's quite well known for including medical devices and things like syringes in his work. So we have some of his drawings here too. We're really lucky to have 3 pieces by Catherine Sherwood in the show, and Catherine is a retired professor of art and painting from UC Berkeley, but also a very prominent person in the local disability community. She founded an artist collective with Sonora Taylor called the Yelling Clinic, which explores the intersection of art, disability, and war. And also looks at how art therapy can help with that. And Catherine had a stroke at the age of 44, so she had to relearn how to make her artwork, and she switched from her right arm to her left arm to make her work, and also started to include more disability content. So there are 2 pieces on my right that are, well, they're both from the healers of the Yelling Clinic. There's a big one on the left here, which is called Dr. Speech. And it's a kind of assemblage with 2 bare linen canvases that have been attached so that they make a kind of torso of a person. And then coming down from the middle of the second canvas is a long gray silk skirt with a sort of beautiful knotted sash that hangs down. The right arm on the figure is bright red and made with really thick paint. And there are 2 seals on the torso in the breast area, and then a large one for the head. And they're Solomon seals, and they have healing properties. And then the one on my right is called Neuron Nurse, and that has a square canvas where a head is. It sort of forms a figure as well. And then 2 square canvases attached together, and then a striped kind of mattress ticking skirt that hangs down with layers of frills. It's sort of layered. The design on the upper canvases follows an illustrator's work whose name is Kahal, I think. I can't remember exactly what his name is. But I know that Catherine is really interested in his work, and he wanted to be an artist, but was persuaded to go into medicine by his father. And he actually won the Nobel Prize for his work on medical illustration. So there's a kind of interesting link with the medical profession again, but also with somebody who wanted to be an artist and was prevented from doing so by circumstances or by his family. But they both link to a really big piece on the right, which is, I think it's about 85 inches high and 115 inches wide. It's made on the backs of linen history of art images that were used to teach history of art at UC Berkeley. So on the reverse of all these pieces are well-known paintings. So Catherine taped them together with strips of linen to create a new kind of painting surface and a new way of working. So it's a very irregular shape. I mean, the edges are not straight. They're kind of higgledy-piggledy, depending on the size of the linen. And you can still see lots of pencil marks about which artwork is on the reverse. And the whole of the top part of the canvas is left blank. But the main focus of the painting is a reclining figure that uses an Ingres painting as its springboard. So there was a very famous Ingres painting from 1814 called Grand Odalisque. And this painting is called After Ingres. And Catherine has started to really play around with art historical conventions. So first of all, it's a woman of color that's being represented. And then we notice that she has, her right arm is a prosthetic arm, and that she's holding the same fan that's in the original painting. But also her head and the sort of headdress is made from scans from, Catherine scans of her brain from the time when she was recovering. So I love the way that this is playing around with lots of conventions, because nudes like this were designed for the male gaze, for women were objects of, the male gaze, I suppose, is the best way of describing it. But she's sort of playing around with those conventions, but also asking us to think about what is beauty and what is acceptable and who can be desired. But I feel like she's also looking back at us and asking us to think about how inclusive as a society we really are, and how much are disabled people included in what's going on. The original painting by Ingres was pretty controversial in its day, because it was thought that he had, that you would need extra vertebrae to create this long, languorous pose. And I think somebody's done research and discovered that that is actually true, that you would need extra vertebrae. This kind of pose is impossible. And that Ingres had also shortened the right arm of the person in the original painting. So there are all these lovely plays on anatomy and physicality and our kind of embodiment in the world. I'm standing in front of a range of work by Catherine Lecce Chong, who is a blind artist and created these isolation icons at the start of the pandemic. And as the work progressed, it became more complicated and more intense. But this is one of my favorite pieces on the left here, which is a Madonna and Child, and it's called Cobalt Blue Virgin. And it has layer upon layer upon layer of white paint. And Catherine lost her sight quite suddenly, so she had to relearn how to make work as an artist. And so I think you'll find them really interesting. The color is a really significant part of them. One of the most exciting pieces in the show is an interactive labyrinth created by blind artist and labyrinth facilitator Maya Scott. And we want people to actually participate and walk the labyrinth. So I'm going to actually show how to begin that. And the labyrinth is made up in the shape of an eye. It's a 5-circuit labyrinth. And each piece of the labyrinth line is made up of prints of drawings of Maya's own eye. So we're kind of suggesting that looking and seeing and staring is all part of the show. And you can simply walk and trace or roll. If you're in a wheelchair, you can roll over the surface and follow the path. And it's meant to be a journey of contemplation and meditation. And we hope that people will use this space as a way of thinking about the events that we've all been through and dealing with the pandemic and the rise of things like long COVID, and we have no idea how that's going to play out. But this, coupled with Catherine Lecce Chong's isolation icons, creates this kind of space of sacred and peaceful time for yourself to think about things, and then maybe you can leave the art center refreshed and renewed with a different perspective. We do have quite a few blind artists in the show, and that sort of happened organically, but it also is a way of signaling to people that blind artists can still make visual art. And here we have ceramics by a blind potter called Don Katz, who lost his sight through meningitis and is still, I think, an emerging artist. So he's still studying and learning. And he's trying out lots of different ways of making ceramics. The plaque in the center is a phrase that he likes to use all the time, which is "tell it to the cows." I think it's a phrase he used in his recovery. But the ceramics program here at Palo Alto is very thriving and vibrant, and I think the ceramics people might find this interesting. We have a range of work by Rachel Ungerer, who makes work about invisible disabilities. And these are narrative paintings, often describing situations where she has not been believed as having a disability. And I think it's a common experience for people. She also references a concept called interdependence that the disability community talk about, which means that we often have to make ourselves vulnerable to get through a certain situation. So being fed by somebody is a situation that's been described to me as a really good example of interdependence, because you become much more intimate than you normally would. And so her work is very lush and painterly, but it's full of these deep stories too. And I love this drawing of hers, disabled hands, strong hands, in charcoal. And opposite Rachel's work is a couple of video pieces by Sky Kubikub and their Rebirth Garments project, which has the principle of radical visibility. So often disabled people are not given the spotlight, and they're asked to sort of fit in without making themselves stand out in any way. And as you can see, Sky's work really does make people stand out, but they also approach their work in a very personal way. And so the clothes that Sky makes for people are tailored specifically to them, not only physically, but also in the way that they desire to be seen by others. We also have two ASL masks on the wall with clear fronts so that interpreters can be seen lip reading. It's for lip readers. So we also have this incredibly powerful logo designed by Jennifer White Johnson during the protests that happened when George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were killed. And included in the symbol is the power fist silhouette, but also the infinity symbol, which represents the autism community. And I think Jennifer's work is really powerful because she explores the double whammy that people of color with disabilities face in terms of discrimination and exclusion. And often young Black disabled children in the education system are discriminated against and excluded to a greater degree than other children. So she has this symbol available for download for free on her website, and it was used in many protests to represent the disability community too. When you come in through the main entrance of the gallery, you'll be able to look at this huge portrait, huge self-portrait by Anthony Tusler from, I think, 1977, when he was really beginning to take on a disability identity because he had met other young disabled people who were cool and had begun to realize that he could explore this in more ways, and also with his photography. So we see him with cut-off jeans so we can see his leg braces. He's sitting in a wheelchair. He's leaning forwards with a slightly raised shoulder. He's got a beer in his hand, and he's kind of asking us to stare at him. But he's also slightly sneering at us too. So it's that kind of look of a young person who is saying, you know, this is me, take it or leave it. And so it's not often that we see disabled people in this way. He's not apologizing, he's not explaining, he's just saying, this is who I am. And so I'm really glad that we have this as an enlargement in the show, because it's a striking thing as you come into the gallery. And it is something that you can spend a lot of time with. There is actually a bench opposite, so you can sit and look at the portrait in more detail. He's also wearing cowboy boots, I forgot that. And he's a kind of bad boy, you know, and again, that's another thing that we don't necessarily associate with having a disability. And I can point out the person who he'd met that was really significant in his growth as a disabled person taking on a disability identity. And this portrait, sorry, it's not a portrait, this documentary shot here has been used a lot in documentaries and publications, because it's a kind of iconic shot of the 504 demonstration and takeover of the federal building in 1977, when over 100 people with disabilities were organizing and protesting to get the first civil rights legislation for disabled people signed into law. And they took over the federal building for almost a month. And it's a very San Francisco story, because all the local organizations, including the Black Panthers and all the churches, the Gay Men's Butterfly Brigade, everybody who was a nonprofit or could help in any way, did what they could to keep the protesters in the building, because they didn't want to dilute the regulations in any way, and there was talk of separate but equal education, and they knew that if they gave in, that it was a very slippery slope and things would just get more and more diluted. So today's people with disabilities owe the campaigners and the protesters from 1977 a huge amount. And the person in the middle of this black and white photograph is Steve Diaz, who Anthony had met, and they realized that they were both cool and that they could become active members of society, and that their disability didn't have to get in the way. The crowd is really diverse in the photograph. There are wheelchair riders, there are lots of people of different races, different ages, and different backgrounds, and they're shot from a low perspective. So that's another thing about Anthony's work, is that he's a wheelchair user, and so the way he takes photographs is from a much lower down perspective than you would normally get. But this is so great because it has the San Francisco main Capitol building in the background. In this smaller gallery, we have an installation, a kind of an experimental installation by a blind artist called Jennifer Justice, called Future Maps. And it's a kind of, not a recreation of her studio, but it's a kind of work in progress. So it's very playful, and there are sort of a few jokey pieces in here. There's a painting called The Carrot and Stick. There's a banana peel hanging from a flagpole. There's a painting of a meteorite and some drawings from her sketchbook. But it's really about the kind of chaos that we're all surrounded by on a daily basis, it seems, with the pandemic and the climate crisis and the sort of political polarization of everything. And as some of the other artists have created work as a response to what's going on, Jennifer is exploring some of the environmental issues that we face, but in a kind of playful, sort of slightly panicked way. This piece over here that's hanging in the corner is called Bucket of Rain, and it was made as a response to a fire in Napa. I'm not exactly sure what year, but as a blind artist, Jennifer also is a wood turner, so these beautiful wooden shapes hanging down in the shape of different kinds of teardrops. They're different sizes, different woods, and they hang down at different levels from beaded chain from a circular metal, kind of rusty circle that hangs from the ceiling. I think Bucket of Rain says a lot, but this piece has quite a history because it also survived a fire that happened at the Enchanted Hills camp, which is, I think it's run by the Lighthouse for the Blind every summer, and it survived a fire that got very, very close. So in a way, that's also embedded in this piece, this whole experience that in California we have every year of the fires and the smoke and the environmental problems. And just next to that is a tactile map. And Jennifer created this using data provided by the Yurok tribe in an open source project. So there's a big plan to remove 4 dams in California on the Klamath River, and I think 1 in Oregon too. And it will have a huge impact on the riverways up there and the wildlife and the whole ecological health of the river system. I think Jennifer's planning to make more of these tactile maps, but again, it's a way of exploring this information in a way that maybe is soothing and more tactile than just the dead information. I'll give you a quick glimpse at the carrot and stick painting, which again is a sort of humorous response to the confusion and chaos we're all experiencing, and the fact that maybe we're not doing enough to respond to the environmental problems that we have, which I think is a very common experience because people don't know what to do. And then on here we have a vitrine which has some more of Jennifer's wood-turned pieces. So this is a place setting. There are 2 goblets, a bottle opener and a spoon, and a lovely little plate. And on the plate is a 3D printed footprint from a chicken, and then going up the wall in really bright blue and green are footprints from a pig, a cow, and a rhinoceros. So there's a kind of reference to factory farming, but it's kind of playful because the rhinoceros doesn't really belong there. But I love that kind of joyful exploration of ideas that is going on in here. And there will be a soundtrack played, which is a recording of birdsong from Ukiah, where Jennifer lives, and other sounds, including sounds from these 3D footprints when they were in a previous installation where they were part of a vibrating installation. So, but then here we have a kind of fantastic banana skin hanging from the wall as another playful element in here. So I think this whole room invites you to let go of the usual way of responding to what's going on, and maybe Jennifer's providing some signposts of how to cope with the situation that we all find ourselves in. So we also have a comfortable space for you to sit and listen to an audio comic written by Chad Allen, who's a blind writer and a blind magician. And he wrote this story as a response to all the chaos and confusion going on in the world, but also because of the way that he was feeling isolated as a disabled person and not included. So I'm going to read something that Chad wrote. So he says, "You don't see art with your eyes. You don't see anything with your eyes. All your eyes do is filter light. You see with your brain, and that's what I'm trying to teach people more than anything." So the comic is set in the future, and it's called Unseen. And it's the story of Afsana, who is a blind female assassin, also living in a chaotic world in which she feels invisible to society. But also Chad says, discounting Afsana's abilities is her enemy's gravest regret. So early in the narrative, we begin to understand that Chad is reframing the narrative so that our perceptions of blind and visually impaired people are really challenged. And Afsana is actually an assassin. So it's the first episode of this really exciting story. And I think if you listen to it, you'll have a completely different perspective on what blind people are all about. This is one of my favorite parts of the exhibition. It's a display case full of disability action figures that have been collected by Anthony Tusler over the years. It has characters like a pirate. We have African-American wheelchair Barbie. There's 3 versions of Dr. X. I actually don't know the names of all the characters, but there's a whole variety of people with different disabilities from different backgrounds. And I think it's a splendid kind of disability pride display. And on either side, we have prints by Shayna Harper, who's an artist at NIAD. The one on the left says, "Being normal is overrated." And my kind of favorite piece, in a way, is the one on the right, which says, "Being an artist is the best feeling in the world." And I'm sure any of you who are artists would agree with that. So I think it's a really nice way to finish the show with these kind of interesting comments and statements and this splendid disability pride display. So we've given you a pretty whirlwind tour of what's in the show. I am really happy that the exhibition will be up until the middle of December, because it means that people will be able to come back more than once to engage with the work and spend time here. We're really proud of the access features that we have. So if you want to check out the work online, you can too. You can attend the events online as well as in person. We have a huge community day coming up on October the 10th. So I really hope that you can make it to that. But thank you very much for listening to all of this, and I really hope that you enjoy the show. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for I hope you enjoy Fran's walkthrough in the gallery and that you're inspired to join us in person. The Palo Alto Art Center is open to the public Tuesdays through Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And as Fran mentioned, we have a community day planned on Sunday, October 10th from 12 to 4. And the link to register on Eventbrite is in the chat. And next, you'll have a chance to meet Ability Path artist Jaz3, who will introduce the art activity that they're doing for the Friday night event tonight.
Hello, my name is Jaz3. I'm an artist that works with pastels, with acrylics, and with mixed media. I do paint. I paint and mostly abstracts and stylized animal portraits, such as mythical creatures, pet portraits, and just whatever I see out in the world. I usually make an abstract background to add to the animal, if it's an animal or a plant. I began my work through in school, when I would draw in class to help myself focus on whatever was being said. I would draw in circles and spirals, and I would paint them or draw or color them in with gradients. Over time, I've developed my style into more of a style of its own. I found this leaf while I was out walking. This leaf is one that I was just walking along, and I found this leaf that was orange and yellow in the middle, but the tips hadn't changed yet. And I thought it looked like I had that, and I just thought it was very pretty, and I had it on my computer for a few months, and then I had been wanting to do something with it, and then I just decided, you know what, I'll just finally use that leaf, and here it is. I mean, sometimes I'll just walk and I'll see acorns or little plants that are seeds of plants in the wild. Or sometimes I'll look at a tree and just say, hey, that would be nice to draw. Sometimes I'll just draw and just see what'll happen. And that's what this one is like. This one, I had no real inspiration either. I just was there, and you know what? A water droplet sounds nice. I like birds. Sometimes I'll just look online at animals, on like photos of animals, for the sake of whatever reason, for drawing or for just looking at them because I like animals. And I found a bird, and I decided, you know what, a bird would be good for this piece. A bird isn't too complicated if you don't want to make it detailed. Yeah, so we start with the sketch, and we want to make sure we have a little maze. It can be simple or it can be complicated, but we want to just make sure it has an entrance and that we can follow it with our hand to the end. So we start with a pencil, and then from there we color the inside. For coloring the inside, we want to start with the line that we will follow with for the maze, because we want to make sure, and we'll do that in a darker color than the rest of the piece so that we can keep seeing it once the piece is done. We want to make little patterns within. It can be anything you'd like. It can follow the pattern of the design, or it can be more complicated, as in little drawings and paintings within each area that's inside the maze. Don't stress. Don't stress about it. You want to just focus on the little pieces of the piece, and if something isn't the way you like it, then it's fine. It's for fun. And honestly, I don't think that you need to worry too much. You just need to let the pastel guide you in a way. Don't stress, basically. Just enjoy it, and it's an abstract, so it's gonna be pretty much impossible to mess it up because it's an abstract, and abstracts don't have a structure. You don't even need to follow the maze to have the piece look like a maze. It's a natural outcome of the type of art that I normally do, which is the circles and backgrounds that are made up of little patterns. A maze is just another kind of pattern, really. It's a pattern that has an entrance and an exit, rather than just being a pattern that is what it is by itself. It has an end point. And it really just looks very similar to how I always have worked, even from the beginning, when I did the pieces that were less complicated than the ones I do today. So for a maze, all you really need is to have one entrance and one exit. It can be simple, like this one seems to be, or it can be more complicated, harder to find the way out. But all that matters is that you like what you're doing and that you have fun with it. With this piece, I think I'm gonna try to go with a bit of a watery look. Water is chaotic, or it can be very calm. So in each square, I'm gonna do something related. I'm gonna either make a wild crashing waves like this piece right here, or I'm gonna give it a calmer look with straight and calm or small waves rather than big crashing. So I went with a bit of a cracked look, like a cracked piece of ceramic as well. So you don't have to only go with one idea in each piece that you make. It can be many ideas, or just one, or just as many as you would like. Don't stress. Don't stress about it. You want to just focus on the little pieces of the piece, and if something isn't the way you like it, then it's fine. It's for fun, and don't stress, basically. Just enjoy it, and it's an abstract, so it's going to be pretty much impossible to mess it up because it's an abstract, and abstracts don't have a structure. You don't even need to follow the maze to have the piece look like a maze. I love nature. I think that we live in a very beautiful area with a lot of plants, a lot of little critters living around, and it's just even just walking is enough to find inspiration if you're looking for it.
Well, I hope that was fun, and I would highly encourage you to try what Jazz 3 was making, and do come to the Palo Alto Art Center not only to see the Art of Disability Culture, visit our community gallery where you'll see Jazz 3's work, actually, and other Ability Paths artists as well, and they are for sale, so do come and support them. Well, looks like we're a bit early, but we do have a live stream portion, live performances at 7:25 this evening. But in the meantime, do hang on with us, grab a drink and come back, and we will share the YouTube link to the live stream portion in a bit. Thank you.
I'm Karen Kinzel, Director of the Palo Alto Art Center. Welcome to all of you who are here in person and to our crowds that are joining us virtually. We are now coming together in community as our live event joins our virtual event in a live stream. And our lights just got out. There's light. Thank you. I'm now so delighted to introduce Jay Torres and Rachel Henderson from Latsimo Hip Hop Productions. Latsimo's emphasis is on cultivating the talents of those with different abilities and other disenfranchised performers. They offer a wide range of classes, including hip hop dance, rap, tumbling, and so much more. Latsimo's multi-talented founder, Jay Torres, has more than 20 years of experience as a performer, choreographer, DJ, and teacher. He and his student, Rachel Henderson, have been performing together for more than 5 years. Rachel is a fearless hip hop performer who shines as both a dancer and a rapper.
This duo represents all that is possible when we believe in everyone's ability to be a performer. Take it away, Latimo.
Freakazoids, robots, please report to the dance floor. Z-O-I-D-S. Z-O-I-D-S. Robots.
Hop on and wind me up.
How's everyone doing tonight? Good evening. My name is Jay Torres, founder of Latismo Hip Hop Productions. Latismo Hip Hop was created years ago in the small town of Hollister, California. It is a combination of hip hop, expression, and passion. I have had the blessed opportunity to teach beautiful people like Rachel. I never knew my journey would connect with people of differing abilities. But coming from the LGBTQ community, I understand. I understand what it is to not be accepted. I understand what it is to want to belong. I created this. My students have taken it a step further. What you're going to hear next is Rachel's own rap. Now, listen as best as you can. She puts the words in her computer. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Rachel Henderson. Come on, put your hands up. Come on. Go.
This is how I roll, got a big huge goal, gotta keep it in control, it's good for the soul, this is how I roll, how I roll, how I roll, cause this is how I roll. You think I'm unaware when people stop and stare, it's rare when I don't see someone glare, I swear it's just so unfair, this is how I roll, how I roll, how I roll, cause this is how I roll. I'm gonna share that I'm aware and say a prayer for all of you who stare, this is how I roll, this is how I roll. People think it's bizarre, I know that I'm a star, and I'm gonna go far, my wheels in my car, cause this is how I roll, how I roll, how I roll, this is how I roll. My wheelchair is my best friend, we will be together to the end, so the message I'm trying to send is please don't stop and stare and bend. I don't like looking at your rear end. This is how I roll, this is how I roll.
Hey, put your hands up, come on. Yeah, Rachel Henderson in the house, Latismo. Yes. All right, so we have your next rap, right? She's like, oh yeah. Okay, we're ready. All right. Oh, whoa. Come on, Rachel.
This is how I roll, got a big huge goal, gotta keep it in control, it's good for the soul, this is how I roll, how I roll, how I roll, cause this is how I roll. You think I'm unaware when people stop and stare, it's rare when I don't see someone glare, I swear it's just so unfair, this is how I roll, how I roll, how I roll, cause this is how I roll. I'm gonna show that I'm aware and say a prayer for all of you who stare. This is how I roll, how I roll, this is how I roll. People think it's bizarre, I know that I'm a star, and I'm gonna go far. My wheels are my carcass, this is how I roll, how I roll, how I roll, this is how I roll. My wheelchair is my best friend, we will be together till the end, so the message I'm trying to send is please don't stop and stare and bend. I don't like looking at your rear ends. This is how I roll, how I roll, this is how I roll.
Give it up. Give it up for Rachel Henderson in the house. Hey. Here is Rachel's mother right here. You can see her. Here's Lisa Henderson. She's going to be working Rachel's wheelchair. This is what she does in class. And for those of you that have children that are in wheelchairs, or rather seated people, Lisa is a really good example of how to maneuver a wheelchair. Check it out.
Oh, is that Canyon again?
Hey, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back.
Lead up, got me thinking, babe. Tell me if you with it, cause I'm with it, babe. I haven't heard from you and I'm in it, babe. Just tell me what to do and I get it, babe. Gucci and Prada. Trip to your crib in the middle of the night. I don't let you miss me cause I put it down right down, babe. I can put you on a flight. You know that a nigga like me can change your life, oh, baby. Everything you do is amazing. Ain't nobody watching go crazy. I got what you need. Everybody think you shy, but I know you a freak, little baby. Everything you do is amazing. Ain't nobody watching go crazy. I got what you need. Everybody think you shy, but I know you a freak, little baby. I've been overseas going crazy. I could tell you love it when we made up. Black and gray diamonds like a radar. Orange peel, your love is real. Love and skills, I need some love and skills. Love my dad drives and you love me still. Eyes come lazy, but she is real. Dress to kill. Biggie bomb bomb till you tired. I can put a stone by your eye. I can't say you never switch your sides. You never tell me lies. Not rushing time task, yeah. Trip to your crib in the middle of the night. I know that you miss me cause I put it down right there, babe. I can put you on a flight. You know that a nigga like me can change your life, oh, baby. Everything you do is amazing. Ain't nobody watching go crazy. I got what you need. I got what you need. Everybody think you shy, but I know you a freak, little baby. Yo, give me lit. Hoes on my phone when they find out that I'm rich, then they switch. When they say I'm choosing on my bitch, top down, got her doing donuts on the dick, yeah. Pose for the flick. Damn it, bust it, baby, watch her do it on the split. She don't need no hands or no pain, do your dance.
Thought I found a way. Thought I found a way, yeah. But you never go away. So I guess I gotta stay now. Oh, I hope someday I'll make it out of there, even if it takes all night. To hide, but I can't find one
alone. Hello, welcome home. Walking out of town, looking for a better place. Something's on my mind, always in my head space. But I know someday I'll make it out of here, even if it takes all night. Oh, 100 years, need a place to hide, but I can't find one that wanna feel alive outside. I can't find my fear.
Isn't it lovely? All alone, heart made of glass, my mind of stone.
Tell me the pieces, skin and bone. Hello, welcome home. Hello, welcome home.
Thank you so much, Latismo. That was amazing. I'd now like to introduce Joy Alon. We are so honored to introduce our final performer of the evening. Joy Alon is an award-winning author and spoken word artist from Oakland and Berkeley. She uses her writing to advocate for civil rights for Black people, people of color, women, and people with disabilities. With her poetry and novels, she speaks about social issues that affect people locally and globally. Joy Alon received her BA in African American Studies from UC Berkeley and her MA degree in education at Stanford University. We're delighted to have Joy here with us tonight. Welcome, Joy.
Wave your hands so I can see you guys. Let me know if that's better. Cool, cool. Thank you, thank you. I want to thank you for having me. I want to give a shout out to the performer right before me. Me and my daughter were jamming. You guys rock. Also, I want to uh, tell the artists I appreciate your work up here. It's important to have artists because we tell the stories that need to be heard, but sometimes we just got to do it a little creative. You know what I mean? So, welcome. My name is Joy Alon, and I'm gonna do a few poems tonight. And the first poem, based off of my experience at Stanford, I had student loans when I graduated. I'm sure a lot of us did. And the first poem that I want to do is called Institutional Freedom. It's about, you know, we were told that we were supposed to get a college education, get a good job, attain the American dream. And unfortunately, when I graduated in 2007, as we all know and kind of remember, the economy was crashing. Um, People were losing jobs, student loans were, people were in debt, losing homes and everything. So this poem is based off of when Stanford had called me asking for a donation. And I said, I have a monthly donation. It's called student loans. So this is to that. I'm a prisoner of an institution, not the prison system, but institution of higher learning. They got me tied down and bound. I can't be free. They keep coming after me financially. Even with the degrees, jobs and businesses don't take me seriously. They look at my resume and tossed it to the side. You could have sworn that they thought I went to San Quentin or some penitentiary. Instead, they saw two rival prestigious universities and they asked me, who do you represent? I didn't go to them school for the sport. You act like I'm in the game and I have to claim turf. I probably wear my school shirts, but I might as well be wearing prison identification numbers. In actuality, I'm in the same boat as the person that went to prison. Thing is, they picked them before me because they can pay them way less. How did I'm competing for the same jobs with ex-cons and I was told my education is the key? Key to what? Being treated like I did something wrong? Yes, I peep out at the bottom 1% of some schools. Only 20 to 50 of us graduating out of a couple of thousand. Now these jobs looking at me like I didn't earn my papers. Like the schools were doing me a favor letting me graduate. They're working together to keep me tied down and bound. That's what they are. Institutions. Keeping me a prisoner in another form. They don't have control over my mind. I'm Andy Dufresne, slowly chipping away at the wall. If it takes me 5, 10, 20 years to get out, so be it. They don't know that I have a prisoner, not to be a they don't know that I have a plan, not to be a prisoner of a company. Nobody's gonna be telling me when to eat, sleep, work, and they'll keep transferring me until I'm old enough to collect Social Security, and all their hard work was just a waste of my life. When I'm out, I'm going to be so long gone and chilling with so much paper, I'm young enough to break free and do as I please. Thank you. All right, y'all hear me? Okay, good. Okay, so I'm gonna come down because I like to be closer to the audience. I hope that's okay. My interpreter, give it up for my interpreters. I want to just, I want to show people where I'm hard of hearing, born, born with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. And I was born in the 80s when I didn't have black deaf role models growing up. Um, I'm fortunate to be from Berkeley, which is like the movement of the disabled, um, Black Panthers, all of that. I think I'm proud to be from this city because everybody in that community were my role model. And I'm not, I learned sign language later in life. My mom and my family were supportive. And, I just want to show you that, of course, we all know we're not all the same. Our experiences are not the same. But guess what? I'm still proud to say I'm hard of hearing and deaf, and I know sign language, and I'm a mother, and I'm educated. But I had to go out there and break some barriers on my own. And so one of the experiences that I had was a job. And the job, I was left to run a community center by myself. And I just had to figure it out. I had to become a manager. And I got called into a meeting, and I'm smart. I like to look at who's invited to these meetings, like Facebook invites. And I noticed that it was a lot of supervisors and me, and I was at the bottom of the, you know, employment. So I said, I don't know what this meeting is about. So I called my union rep, and I asked them to be at present because, and this was also around the time when the job was laying off people. So this poem is called Silently Outnumbered for jobs that underestimated me. And yeah, I had to tell them, don't mess with me. Oh, man. There's a part that I want to do. I'm going to ask my daughter, hey, come up here. Bring my purse. Bring my purse. Got my purse? Okay, cool. All right, cool. So she's going to hold the mic. She's gonna be my microphone stand today. Thank you. All right. All right. Look at me. Without my hearing aids, I look like you, right? You wouldn't know if there was something wrong with me, but that's the thing. There isn't anything wrong with me. You treat me like I'm dumb. I smile to set out to prove you wrong. You're curious how it's so productive. And because you can't get past the fact that I'm smarter than you think, you yell at me and try to find my fault. You want to shame me and tell other people how useless I am. When you walk into the room with a little cocky attitude, just dumb because I got back. You're one man. Guys, you're one. Can you hear me? Oh,
Testing, testing.
yeah, okay. All right. Hold it. Don't touch no button. All right. Yeah, hear me. Okay, okay. All right. When you walk into a room with your little cocky attitude, just dumb because I got backup. You're one man gangster, I'm the mafia. You brought a cap gun to a gunfight. You're shaking in your boots while I politely smile and silently say, checkmate. You thought you could ambush me, instead I ambushed you. You were trying to throw me under the bus, but you didn't know I knew the bus driver. You should have paid attention to my resume. I graduated from 2 prestigious universities because I earned it. I watched enough Law and Order to know my rights, put my hand in the air, and I had the right to remain silent. I have the right to remain silent because anything I say can and will be used against you. No, that wasn't gang signs. My hands were in the air and I remained silent. I just communicated in another way and I said I'm sick of this BS. You're intimidated by me and think I'll take your job. You can relax. I don't want your punk old job. I say that I'm more effective and productive than management. I don't even get paid nearly where you do, but I still get things done in a timely manner. Are you serious? Are you really serious? You talk about loyalty. I believe in loyalty, but that comes after you proving yourself. Honestly, I don't owe you anything. I don't have any reason to be loyal to you. If I can't kiss my own butt, then why would I kiss yours? I'm looking out for number one. I'm not falling for anything. I will stand up for myself. While everyone is running in circles around you, timid and panicking, in the midst of the chaos, I'm always standing alone, rolling my eyes with my mouth wide open, ready to be fed. And if that makes me an easy target, then have at it. Because y'all know that I have sharpshooters ready to take you out if you even think about messing with me. Do you really think I'm dumb? Don't challenge me because I won't back down. I've known about this game for a long time and I've studied the rules. You thought you could beat me, and I don't care what you think about me. You learn the hard way. Don't mess with me and don't ever insult my intelligence. Thank you. All right, take my phone. Give it up for my kid. um, I have a couple of poems left to do. Oh, I wanted to say in that poem that I just did, the part about, being silent and communicating in sign language, I was doing double entendres for a reason to talk about social justice issues with the deaf community, especially Black and people of color who are deaf. When interacting with the police, I was talking about the fact that, when a deaf person is in a car or interact with the police, because we use our hands to communicate, we have to be careful because any sudden movement could cause the police to shoot us. The other thing is we can't really hear well, or we can't hear, and if we can't hear the command of the police officer, then they'll say they'll arrest us for disobeying their command, and really they don't even know that we're deaf. So I like to educate people like, what you can't tell that I wear hearing aids, and I like to bring that attention to, like I said, social justice issues. So I have two more poems left. So I'm from Oakland, and I work in the community, born and raised, and I noticed some things had changed in my community and it was because of gentrification. The thing about being a writer is I get a chance to talk about different types of issues. And one of the articles that I wrote was about Barbecue Becky at Lake Merritt. I was the one who wrote that article before it went viral. And a lot of people don't know who is the writer behind that, but you're looking at her. And so this poem is called Old Oakland versus New Oakland. Every morning, Monday through Friday at 7:30, 580 West is 580 West is jammed. From High Street heading to San Francisco and Bite is packed like cans of sardines. The city that once wasn't seen so pretty is being taken over by techies and businesses, pushing out longtime residents and erasing our traditions and cultures. We have to be quiet when we congregate because we're disturbing the peace. We have been here for over 40 years and we have to give up ourselves for them. We're making the neighborhoods unsafe and unattractive. They are too, making it look like office spaces and homes and forcing everyone to conform to their ideas. We're proud of our city, but we can't afford to live here. The land of oaks was once seen as a joke. Compared to San Francisco, we were the ghetto, America's #2 city of homicides. We were seen as dangerous, but I guess we weren't so bad at all because we were invaded by people who have privilege. It was reverse of white flight. We have to move 30 minutes to an hour away commuting every day to go to work. We can't afford to live in Oakland when we work in Oakland. However, we're putting all this money into our commute. When we're in certain areas, we're profiled for being in the wrong area. Hold up. This was once my neighborhood until you bought the property. Snitching/racial profiling online or next door. Why don't they come out of their homes, experience the culture, to meet the long-term residents before they displace us? I have to carry my freedom paper to prove I lived here. It's technology versus art, whites versus people of color, downtown/uptown versus East Oakland. Oh wait, East Oakland has been taken over too. People don't recognize our sports teams which are in East Oakland. The Raiders and A's play at the Coliseum right next to the Oracle when the Warriors play. Yet the NBA keeps showing the Bay. The fans ride bus to the games and back to their hidden homes. Now they're relocating closer to San Francisco from the west to the east. I can't let them take over my city, but I don't have a choice. I use words in my voice. I have been here my whole life. My family have lived and worked here since the 60s. We give back to our community by living and working in it. They don't care. Nothing was done when we were here, but they don't like it, so local government respond to their complaints. They ignore the people's cries who have been long-term residents. I thought being a taxpayer gave me power. Nah, being a homeowner and paying property taxes give me power. The renters can't afford to live here, and well, while the property owners don't live in Oakland, they clean us out and get the ones with money in. My city doesn't look the same anymore, and it's not from diversity. All right, I'm gonna bring this stand down. I don't like being on the grass. This is my last poem, and I will need the microphone stand for this. For this poem, I do it in sign language, and it's hard to speak and do and sign at the same time, especially because there are a lot of words in English or even in poetry. It's hard to translate into ASL. So this poem is my signature poem. It's called I'm a Survivor, and I wrote this for the re-election of President Barack Obama. And it was just about the voter turnout and voter suppression and stuff we're still seeing to this day. So I wrote this poem especially because I'm an African American studies major. So I hope you like it. And I'm gonna try it again. I'm a survivor of the transatlantic and trans-American slave trade. I'm a Protestant survivor of rape during slavery. No choice but to carry my babies into this horrible world. My baby being ripped from my womb in arms. My husband auctioned off for lynchful rebellion. I know that because of my skin complexion, I was rushed in the house saying, yes, master, and acting like I was a sore subject. Yes, a sore subject. Subject to all kinds of abuse. While taking care of his family, I'm learning how to read and write and listen to his conversations with one another. While I wash his clothes outside and pass by the other slaves, I sing, way in the water, to communicate to the others that the how to read and write. At night, my work is never done. I teach others how to read and write, but I teach how to hide it so we don't lose the battle to freedom. Certain trees grow strange fruit, and even though they're not growing in front of us, they're growing in someone's backyard. I'm a survivor of the civil rights movement. Y'all passing me because I want to vote. I'm a partisan survivor of the Black Power movement, Black Panther Party. Power to the people. Police, intelligence, FBI, instigation, and infiltration. Our leaders downfall cars and 2 rappers on 2 coats use the car to war within our community. They say the best way to hide something from us is by putting it in a book. After all the things I went through to teach how to read and write in slavery, these 2 things, besides free, are becoming useless in our communities. I'm proud to be from Oakland and Brighton, 2 cities that represent change and revolution. I'm Black, not African American. I identify with Africans because I don't know what tribe or region I'm from. Instead of the one Rock rule, I don't know who I was at first. I refuse to call myself an American because I want to call myself something where the country doesn't even want me. They keep finding ways to keep me oppressed or extinct. We fought hard for the right to vote. The moment that we earned it, people aren't registering or getting out there. Our right to vote and freedom may be taken away because we're complacent. But we don't know if a war will break out just to put us back to slavery. That we've been experiencing institutional slavery and racism for the past 50 years. It got real when we had a Black president and he was not backing down. They were afraid that he was going to change America for the better and they couldn't have it. It became tougher and tougher for us to vote and express ourselves. There may be 99%, but that 1% controls everything. I'm a fighter and I refuse to give up. I learned from all the people that fought for us to be here today, dead or alive. We have the right to live freely. I'm a survivor of all these things that my ancestors built the country and we're being based out of history. Pick up a book and learn about the struggles that people went through just for us to be here today. I refuse to let all the movements and those that lay down their life die in vain. And as the late T. Tina Marie once said, I'm young and I'm old. I'm rich and I'm poor. I feel like I've been on the good time before. I used to be a queen on an island by the sea. Rainbow color people, top sky. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joy Alon. Thank you, Joy. Thank you all, everyone who is here in person as part of our community this evening, celebrating the art of disability culture. Thank you to all of you who are joining us online, virtually, for this event. I hope you'll continue to come back and see the show. It's up until December 11th. And I hope that you'll join us for our free Community Day celebration on October 10th from noon to 4 p.m. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Latismo. Thank you to all the artists. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you all. Good night.